Welcome back. Republicans are facing a problem. For much of the day, they were trying to figure out what to say about President Trump siding with Vladimir Putin over U.S. intelligence agencies and his own DOJ. Now, President Trump insists he clearly did not mean to say what he clearly said yesterday. So which President Trump are they to believe, yesterday's or today's? I'm joined now by New York Republican Congressman Tom Reed. So, Congressman, thank you for joining us first off.
Great to be with you, Katie.
Which version of the president do you believe, yesterday's or today's?
Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty, Katie, and look at what the facts are showing us. Clearly, there's Russian meddling in our election in 2016, like it has been for decades. And what we need to recognize is the distinction between meddling and collusion. And I think the president made clear again today what he has said 4 times previously. He recognizes that there's meddling by the Russians in the 2016 election, but no evidence of collusion. And that's why it's time to get the show on the road and move this process forward on the investigation to say if there's collusion, if there's meddling, what is it? Let's get the facts out to the American people and get this behind us so we can start solving the problems of America.
Why is it so hard for the president to consistently say that he believes in our intelligence community and the assessment they made on Russia? Why does he continue to question it? Even today in the walkback, Congressman, he said it could be many other people.
Well, you know, I think there's definitely an issue of what is meddling and what is collusion. And I think, you know, I'll let the president speak to what his intention, what his mind is. But what I hear is there's a difference from the president's perspective and from my perspective as to what is meddling in the election versus collusion. There's no evidence of collusion, in my opinion. There's evidence of meddling. And what I think the president continues trying to stress is that where is the evidence of collusion? And if there is none, let's recognize the results of 2016 and move forward as a country to solve the problems we face on a day-to-day basis.
The president has never made that distinction. Do you not think the president is smart enough to make that distinction? Is that the argument you're making?
No, what I think he's made it very clear, as he did today. He recognizes that Russia was trying to meddle in our election, and I think that's clear. And they've been doing it for decades.
He didn't make it very clear, because right after he said that, and he was trying to correct one word that he said I should have said would not instead of would. And following that immediately, he said, and it could have been other people as well. It could have been Russia, and it could have been other people. Nowhere in our intelligence community's assessment has anybody named other people. In the DOJ indictment, the Mueller indictment on Friday, nobody named other people. They named 12 Russian intelligence officers.
Oh, well, let's be very clear. I think there's evidence within the evidence that's been presented to me that there's been meddling in our election process, not just 2016, but before, by actors out of North Korea, out of China, out of other areas of the world that have tried to influence the election in the way that they wanted to see an outcome.
This is not an influence campaign. This is an attempt. This was an attempt, and a successful attempt, to hack into the DNC. This wasn't just an influence campaign through social media. That was also there. This was a hack into the DNC and a hack into John Podesta's emails.
Yeah, there is ample evidence of computer hacking going on out of actors out of North Korea, out of China.
Are you trying to equate what happened with them with what Russia did? Because that's what it sounds like.
I'm trying to say that there is the issue of meddling in our elections is a real threat. And it's clear that Russia was part of it. Now, that doesn't mean Russia is the only actor that engaged in that, not only in 2016, but before. And what we should do as a country is recognize the threats to our election process and make sure they don't happen going forward. That's all I'm trying to argue and submit to the American people. Why don't we solve the problem of election meddling at its root cause?
Do you think the president is aware of how it looks and how he is working against U.S. interests by standing next to Vladimir Putin and siding with him?
Well, you know, I do have a concern. You know, obviously, Putin is no friend of America. He's an adversary. He is an enemy. And we should treat him as that. But however, we do have to recognize that Russia does have influence in the world as a superpower with nuclear weapons that can influence areas like Syria, Iran, North Korea. And if there's common interest we can find with an adversary or an enemy like Russia, I think it's worthwhile to have that dialogue open to try to solve those hotspots across the world.
What did we come out of yesterday's meeting with? I haven't heard an announcement from the White House.
Well, hopefully the beginnings of that dialogue where we can identify those common interests to attack those common problems that are recognized as a threat to us as a nation as well as
beginnings of a dialogue.
the
He's now met with Putin. I think this is the 3rd time he met with him at the G20. He had a side meeting in Asia earlier this year, and this is the 3rd meeting. What does he come out of it with?
Well, you know, my hope is in those conversations, a relationship is continuing to be solidified with an adversary, with an enemy in Putin that can identify that common area. And let's be clear, you know, we can go all the way back to when Secretary of State Clinton opened up the Russian reset. There is a reason why they were trying to do that. They recognize that Russia, even though an enemy, even though an adversary, needs to be part of the conversation as a world superpower to attack these common problems that are threats to both of our countries.
Regardless of where you stand, you have to admit that the question is now being raised again, and it has more legitimacy than it's had in quite a while. What does Vladimir Putin have on President Trump? It's a question that's being raised by Democrats. It's a question that's being raised by folks in the media. It's a question being raised by columnists. It's also a question that is hard to answer for some of your Republican colleagues. I asked this of Senator Flake yesterday, and he didn't have an answer for this. Now, Mark Sanford, one of your colleagues, outgoing congressman from South Carolina, says that Congress should subpoena Donald Trump's tax returns to clarify whether or not he has been compromised by Russia. Do you agree with that? Do you want to see his tax returns?
As we have always said, the issue of this question is that red herring is something that I think is more motivated out of media, out of hysteria.
How is it a red herring to see where his money is?
I don't see where that evidence suggests that outcome that you're coming to the conclusion on.
How is it a red herring to see where his money is?
Oh, I think, with the financial disclosures, we've had the issue of the tax reform for quite some time out there in the public debate. The president has made the decision. He's won the election. The way that it's been handled, we need to move forward. And we understand that there's financial disclosures on record that people can have access to. And that, to me, we need to move from beyond that question and move into the issues that face us day to day as American society.
Republicans had a lot of concern about where Hillary Clinton's money was tied up with the Clinton Foundation. If she said she wasn't going to release her tax returns and then became president and had a whole lot of controversy and drama surrounding her ties to a foreign government the way that Donald Trump did, would you think it was appropriate for her not to release her tax returns?
That's for her to decide, and we respect that decision, and we leave it up to the voters to make their informed decision based on the decisions that have been made by Hillary Clinton or President Trump going forward. I think at the end of the day, we can have this conversation of division at length and have this fight as a nation that's going to polarize us. I'm about trying to bring people together and say, you know what, these problems we face as a country are big. Let's focus on real people rather than these divisive type issues we see today.
Congressman Tom Reed, whatever you do, sir, take care of your shoes. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate that very much, Katie.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.